Well, I'm so glad to have you with us. We just want to share a quick little testimony. We know the election, what just happened this last week. And of course, Wednesday morning, Donald J. Trump was declared the president of America. I want to talk about that just a little bit prophetically. But my daughter is going to share a quick, brief story about early Wednesday morning.
Well, it felt like Tuesday because it was around 12:30 at night. And I like to open my Bible randomly sometimes just to see if God will lead me through his scriptures. And, of course, vacillating, mostly trusting in God that something good will happen. But you know how we all struggle with that. And I opened onto the passage in Esther chapter 9, verses 20 through 22. And Mordecai wrote these things and sent letters unto all the Jews that were in all the provinces of the king Ahasuerus, both nigh and far, to establish this among them, that they should keep the 14th day of the month Adar, and the 15th day of the same yearly, as the days wherein the Jews rested from their enemies. Read that again. The Jews rested from their enemies, and the month which was turned unto them from sorrow to joy. We read that again. It says that month was turned from sorrow to joy, and from mourning into a good day, that they should make them days of feasting and joy, and sending portions one to another in gifts to the poor. And so I called up my brother Michael and said, well, this is the passage I dropped on, and it put hope in my heart, because God was saying that we will rest from our enemies. This month will be turned from sorrow to joy, from mourning to a good day, and that we should feast and have joy.
Now, was that just something you just opened up to?
Yes.
Okay, take that. Thank you. So I want you to notice, some people call that the plunk method, where you just open up your Bible and you see what God speaks to you. And I wouldn't guarantee it's the Lord all the time, but a lot of times, you know, people open up their Bibles and a passage of scriptures will jump out, and that's what happened on this last Wednesday early in the morning, and not knowing who was going to win yet the election. And my daughter opened that up, and of course we know who Haman was. Haman had plotted and connived to kill all of the Jews. And of course, God used Esther and divinely intervened. And then Mordecai, her uncle, sent that letter out and said that this day that was supposed to be a day of destruction and death is going to become a time of great joy. So it kind of reminds me of a close friend of mine, which I've got the video up, Brother Henry Groover. And Henry was a good friend of ours. He'd come and preach. He went home to be with the Lord a couple years ago, but he had a vision, he had a dream, where Trump pulled up in front of his house in a limousine. He got out, came into Henry's house, and they were talking and fellowshipping. And as he was talking to him, Mr. Trump had a robe of authority put on him. And so they talked for a while, and then Mr. Trump got done talking, and he said, well, I got to be leaving. And he took off the robe and handed it to Henry Groover, which is symbolic of authority. And he said this, he said, I will be back, I will return. And he walked out the door and got in his limousine and drove off. And so Henry, at that time, he had no idea that Trump was going to be running for president. It was before that, but he shared before he died that he literally thought that meant that Trump was going to become president, and then he was going to leave for a season, and then he was going to come back again. And we just saw that fulfilled. I really believe prophetically, and I know there's other prophetic voices out there that prophesied this, but I really believe that's what God has done. I believe we are coming into a time, and we have to continue to pray, believe that they're not going to be able to take him out. They're not going to be able to hurt his family or anybody involved. But I really believe that we are at one of the most significant historic moments in the history of our nation since the Revolutionary War, the Civil War, and of course World War II that we were involved in. I really believe that God has divinely heard our voices. I know that after January the 6th, I was in the backyard of my house and I was praying. And I said, Lord, what is going on? And he spoke to my heart. I knew it was him. He said, son, I'm simply answering the prayers of my people. And I said, Lord, what's that? He said, you all have been asking me to expose all of the wickedness, the wretchedness, and the immorality in D.C. He said, I'm not done yet. So he was right. That's what we've been praying, that God would expose all of the wretchedness. And the next part of that prayer is that he would overturn it, that he would destroy it, that he would stop it. And I believe that we are in the next phase of that prophetic word, where God has restored Mr. Trump, and now we are coming into a time where much of the perversion and the wickedness and the immorality that has been in D.C., I don't call it the swamp, I call it the sewage pit, where God is going to turn it around and he's going to cleanse this nation, and we're believing God for a mighty revival.